Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is our year to shine, and this will be another installment of our discovery of the joy of less with Francine Jay. And we're going to be talking about the kitchen tonight and the dining room too. She combines the two, and I'm coming to you from my kitchen table. It is one thing that I set up a little bit differently in the new place, and I like it because now I'm sitting on both sides, where I used to really only sit on one side. And I think we did, when we went through the room last year during our Simple Abundance year, we did talk a lot about the dining room and the kitchen, and how sometimes you might have a formal dining room in your home, or you might have more of like a little like eat-in kitchen sort of table, which is the way that I grew up. I mean, we did have a more formal dining room for the holidays and things, but it was also like this room that was sort of just for show otherwise. So she doesn't go super into that, aside from saying that the dining room can be one of the places where you might have that treasured china that you got for, you know, those place settings when you got married or something, or it was like heirloom passed down from other family members. And so she's trying to get us to look at these things, and then, like in the instance of the dining sets, what about if you just save out 2 or 4 of them, like depending on how many people you have, or the maximum number of people that you may have over, and really how often do you entertain and use those really nice dishes. I think a lot of times people now sometimes just get like decorative paper plates, right, and have like a buffet sort of set up with the family. So it's, again, like as we're going through each room, I'm seeing a lot of crossover, obviously, because we talked so much about streamlining, we talked about decluttering, we talked about maintaining, we talked about trash, treasure, and transfer. So again, she's taking us through the kitchen and the dining room with those same principles. And she makes a good point about the kitchen, and I agree with this, that it is the kind of place where maybe you might have impulsively bought something, maybe you're like a home show or something, and they showed you this amazing thing that you could peel avocados with, or something unusual that maybe you love avocados and you use that every day, but something that is sort of just sitting in a drawer now that you don't use. Or you loved the idea of having a bread maker, but then when you think about it, it's like it takes too long and there's too many parts, or you hate your food processor because there's too many things to clean. Like, so there's these things that was like, there was a good thought when you purchased them, but then now they're just collecting dust. So you can find a lot of places to transfer those things to, and some people that are just starting out, they might be thrilled, and maybe they'll enjoy that small time period where they're trying the bread maker, and then they might pass it on. So she considers this to be a room that will take a lot of work, because, well, it's easy to see when you take everything out. Like, you know how she's encouraged us to do that in each room, and it's like, if it's in the living room, she told us, like, take all the furniture out. If it's in the kitchen, take everything out of all of your cabinets and your drawers, and see how many things, like you might have 5 potato peelers or something like that, and you never even realized. So again, we're doing this in every room, so it's pretty similar. I think we're getting a sense of the idea of what Francine is encouraging us to do, and a lot of it is just realizing it by taking it out, sorting it. I think the idea of the modules as a part of the streamlining is pretty straightforward in the kitchen. You can think about how you're going to have things that, well, I memean, the whole thing is about eating, right? So the whole kitchen is a module in some respects, but maybe you have, like, I'm trying to think now of, like, well, I mean, obviously you'd have all your silverware together. You probably would have like cooking utensils right nearby. Again, with the inner and outer realms, she says you're not going to put like your favorite coffee cup in a place that you have to get up on a stool to get to. I'm thinking about, like, I have some cabinets above the fridge there, and of course those are things, like, I'm thinking, because I know exactly what's in there now, because I just moved, and I actually, when I went to move, I thought, what did I put in there? Because I didn't even remember. Again, it's nothing that I would be using on a regular basis. There's some baskets in there. Like if I was ever hosting and I wanted to have like, you know, bread in a basket or something, there's an extra pitcher, you know, for some special drink or something. So that's my outer realm. It's still available. Of course, I didn't even remember what was in there. So Francine would say, as she does in most of the chapters so far, that what I really should do is I should put like a date up there. And if I don't even open those doors for say 6 months to a year or something, and I haven't used any of those things, then I should part with them. And I know what you're saying. You're probably saying, I should say, is like, it's hard to let go of things sometimes because you think, as soon as I let go of it, then I'm going to want it the next day. So she gives us an example, or a suggestion, I should say, that you can have this sort of holding area. So maybe it's like that cabinet that I don't really access. Maybe I have an old bread maker or some other apparatus or something where I'm like, oh, I might need that. And then I put it in that cabinet and I have a time on it. And I like what she says, because you might think like, oh, I need that. But she says, even an example of like getting rid of most of your dishes except for like what you use on a regular basis. She says if you have some big shindig, you can always rent, you can borrow from someone, you know, you could use the paper disposable sort of things. So it's not the end of the world. And I'm sure there's other people out there that you know that probably would be totally fine with loaning you dishes, or like she said, renting it. If it's something you're only going to use once a year, why is it collecting dust in your house? Why are you even, you know, having this excess? You can rent it, you can borrow it. I didn't even really think of that until I read that. It seems so simple. I haven't even been reading yet out of the book here, but it's pretty straightforward. I think she also wants us, like, when we sort everything, again, just like in the office when we talked about getting rid of things that are so obsolete that it's just ridiculous, you still have them. But say you have plates that are chipped, or you have like old salad wooden spoon sort of things and they're broken, or they have like black spark, you know, streaks on them or something like that. She talks about the show kitchens and how everybody's always like, ooh, ah, about the show kitchens. And most often it's because they're very clutter free. And so she wants you to think of like only putting back in your cupboards and your drawers what you would want to have in a designer kitchen. And maybe that means going out and replacing some of it. Remember, the simplicity is not necessarily about just getting rid of stuff. It's about having the things that you're going to really use and savor. So if you have a whole bunch of gross wooden spoon sort of things, like, why not go out and get some really nice ones, and they're going to last you a long time, and then, you know, you won't be thinking they're gross all the time. Or maybe just get rid of them. Maybe you don't even need them. So we know about decluttering by now. And of course, she mentions this is probably a really good area to transfer things, because even with she mentions checking the expiration date on food and condiments, spices, and things like that. She says, you know, a lot of those things you can still donate to food pantries, and you could give them to people who you know are in need. So there's a lot of ways to transfer things here in the kitchen. And also, I mentioned this when we were talking about just simplicity in general and what it meant to be a minimalist. And I mentioned that when I replaced my pots a few years ago, that I just have 3 now. And that's plenty for me. It does everything I want. And she says the same thing about her and her husband, that they really had just pared down to have, she says we could prepare our meals with just 4 pieces of cookware: a large skillet, a saucepan, a pasta pot, and a baking pan. Yeah. I think about the things that I do have, like in the broiler, I keep some things like brownie pans, and I never make cupcakes, and I have cupcake things. I probably could get rid of some of that stuff. Because you could always, instead of making cupcakes, you could use like a bread pan. Probably get through with that. And then she mentions things like silverware can sometimes just become this huge thing where you're saving ones that even got jammed in the garbage disposal at one point. So get rid of that and just keep what you need. And it's just time to determine that you have enough. So narrowing it down where you feel like you have what you need and you don't have excess and you don't feel like you're lacking either. So don't give it all away and then be like, I don't have anything and I love to cook. Maybe you get joy out of buying all those neat little gadgets. But she makes a point, if, you know, a few years go by and you've totally forgotten what the thing even does, obviously it's time to get rid of that, right? And I like this. While streamlining your kitchen, keep in mind that in some cultures, an extraordinary variety of cooking is done with the simplest of implements. It's our creativity in the kitchen, not the cookware in our cabinets, that make for delicious, satisfying meals. Good food doesn't come from fancy plates and fussy servingware. It comes from the hands and the heart, and as a Buddhist monk would tell you, it can be just as well enjoyed in one simple bowl. I really like that. And she mentions too, when you're taking everything out of your cabinets and your drawers, this is a great time to clean them, because you might keep all the surfaces and everything that people see all the time clean, but then how often do you really clean out the actual shelves and drawers and things? When you move, you realize what filth you actually have, because yeah, we don't usually clean those things. And I know I was looking at my drawers and thinking, like, how did I not notice that there were like crumbs in here? And now I'm cleaning it because, you know, for the next person that lives there. So it would be good to get on a schedule, just like Francine has been saying in any of the other rooms. Maybe it's even a yearly basis that it's like you just do this, and whether you pare things down after you've done it one time, maybe you just take everything out and clean. So that's not necessarily what this book is about, but it's kind of a benefit of doing the reorganization. Here's the thing about the modules. I just want to see if there's anything that I didn't say. Actually, I've said most of the things. Limit appliances and gadgets to the ones you use often. And when you upgrade to new ones, give away the old. That's true. She mentioned a few times in this chapter that we do often buy new things and then we haven't gotten rid of the old things. And then recipes and cookbooks. You know, if you like to cook, you probably have a ton of those. So she says they accumulate steadily over time, and rarely do we replace one. That's true. Like you bring one in and you don't probably get rid of another one. So rather than archive them, keep your selection fresh. When you find a better cookbook for certain cuisine or a better recipe for a certain dish, let go of the old one. Think of your collection as dynamic rather than static. Let it evolve to suit your tastes and diet as they change over time. You know, with today's technology too, you could so easily just scan pages and sort of have like a cookbook that's your own from all different sources, and then just getting rid of the book, recycling it or whatever. So maintaining is also an important thing, and it does take regular maintenance. Now, she is big on that you don't leave any dishes undone in the sink. You don't go to bed when there's dirty dishes in the sink. We talked about this last year, and I mentioned Fly Lady. Remember, that's one of her big principles, and she calls it sink reflections, I think, where it's like when you can get to the point where you are like that, then it really starts the next day in a much better way. I can see that, but I hate doing dishes. I just did the dishes in the dishwasher, and I am always pushing the limit on the big pile of dishes. I might do it like once a week. I hate the dishes. So don't let clutter cheat you out of a healthy home-cooked dinner by cluttering your surfaces. So remember, a surface is supposed to be a working area. So if you feel like you don't even have any counter space to make dough or do something that you really want to do to cook, you might just go and get takeout because it seems easier. Wipe the slate clean after every meal also. When you're cooking, put away gadgets, equipment, and ingredients as soon as you're finished with them. After you've eaten, clear the table and counters of any remaining food or implements. Wash all the dishes or load them into the dishwasher immediately. Better to spend a few minutes cleaning up after every meal than face the task when preparing the next. The kitchen has long been considered the heart of the home. Of course, don't you think? But when we have a kitty in the background. Make sure everyone who plops down a toy, book, newspaper, or piece of mail takes it with them when they leave the room. That's just like what she said in the living room too. Be vigilant of the floor as well. When you're carrying heavy pots and hot liquid, things underfoot can be a recipe for disaster. That is true. And I'm thinking of my former mother-in-law. One time for my birthday, she was carrying my birthday cake and she tripped and the cake fell. Yeah, that was in the kitchen. It was funny, actually. We laughed so hard. Finally, the kitchen is a fantastic place for a one-a-day declutter. Yeah, in this room, something can always go, whether it's yesterday's newspaper or last week's leftovers. Make it a habit to scan your refrigerator, freezer, and pantry shelves regularly for expired or outdated items. Maybe you come up with a schedule if you're really regimented like that. Commit to purging at least one item every day. Ooh, whether it's a spoiled food, an extra coffee mug, or orphaned utensil, a mismatched plate, or seldom used gadget. Your junk. Oh, and I didn't even talk about the junk drawer. So I think every kitchen has a junk drawer, don't you? Because I think back when I was growing up, we definitely had a junk drawer. So she encourages us to call it something different. Hold on, I skipped over that. Oh, it's now considered a utility module. So in that drawer, say there's ketchup, like the ketchup things that you get from fast food places. And, so put all those together, like use Ziploc bags, like organize the stuff and get rid of the crap so that it really isn't junk. It's a utility holding area. And then you need to go through that pretty regularly too. That would be part of the maintenance, because you would want to get rid of old stuff in there, but you also would want to know what's in there too, because what's the point of keeping all of those ketchup things if you're never going to use them and then you just keep buying ketchup? So I think I said most everything. So, and she does mention, that's why I forgot to go back, that's why I went back to the junk drawer. She says your junk drawer alone can probably keep you going for a year. That's true, like if you just do a little bit at a time. Just think, your cupboard will actually grow more spacious with every passing day, your cupboards. That's true. There's a lot to be said for the kitchen, and especially if you're somebody that's just had so much in the way of cooking stuff. And maybe at one time you had a big family with kids around and everything, and now it's just your empty nesters, or you're by yourself and you don't need all those things. Like I mentioned, those Corningware things that I have in storage, I should just pass them on to somebody. I was thinking of, there's a young couple that I know, and they've had some babies, and I was like, I should just give that to them. They probably don't have any of that yet, and it's like, I've had it for decades, so it's not like I don't feel sentimental value, and I also don't feel like, oh, I spent so much money on that, because I can't even remember, it was so many years ago. So why do we hold on to these things? I don't know. It's just like out of habit. And it is that thing about thinking like, as soon as I let that go, then tomorrow I'm going to want to make lasagna or something. But there's always renting, there's always getting something disposal, there's always borrowing from a friend. So maybe change your frame of mind in that respect. Let me know what's cooking up in your kitchen and how you're feeling about simplifying overall. We just really have the bathroom, and then we have a little talk about storage, and then we're finishing up the book with just one or two little statements that she makes about how living a simplified life can help for the greater good, and how it becomes a lifestyle. So we will be finishing this up on time, hopefully for the very end of the month. And then we're going to be talking about Dr. Wayne Dyer's book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. So grab that book, because that's going to be the whole summer. We're going to be talking about that. So June, July, and August. And I'm looking forward to starting some new content. But I've really enjoyed this Joy of Less, and I'm glad we didn't rush through it. Like, I've really, I'm enjoying how easy it is to read it, and I'm enjoying the things that I'm getting out of it. In fact, I came home from work tonight, and I just sat outside watching the birds and reading. I'm ahead of where I'm doing the videos, but just read another chapter, and it was just a really nice evening tonight. So I hope that you are doing well and also savoring some time and enjoying the book, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.